I had the worst flight on an airplane that I think it is possible to have. The plane didn't crash, by the way. Probably should have opened up with that, thinking about it. Okay, so there might have been worse flights to be on in the history of the world, but honestly, by the end of this tale of unfortunate events, you might end up thinking it would have been better to just nosedive into the ground, dude. You should have just taken control and just done a cheeky downwards B. I was genuinely considering just roundhouse kicking the emergency exit out and taking the plunge by the end of this, but this is where I say, just stick with me on this one, because I said this was a series of unfortunate events, and just trust me, it does get progressively worse and worse, so strap yourselves in, buckle up, and in the event that cabin pressure is lost, oxygen masks will drop from above your seats. So let's get into the nitty gritty. I was flying from Tokyo Haneda Airport to Manchester via Osaka and Munich. So there was 2 stops on my flight. Now the first thing to know is I had actually rebooked my initial flight to this one, so all of this could have been avoided. But I decided I wanted to go and visit the Ghibli Museum, which is actually quite a wholesome start to this otherwise horrific and horrendous story. So I go to the Ghibli Museum, and then I'd like you to picture the scene. I've just left my hotel, all of the wonderful reception staff are waving me off. Sayonara, Jude-san, come back soon. Well, as it turns out, I would be back soon, because after walking down the road for not even 5 minutes, I looked at my phone and realised my Japanese travel SIM card had run out. Now, this was bad news for a number of reasons. Number 1, I am stupid and I need Google Maps to find my way to the airport, okay? Without it, I am stumbling around like a newborn baby deer. And number 2, the bigger reason, because I had rebooked my flight, I now didn't even know what terminal I was supposed to be flying from. So what you would normally do is just check in online on the app, but obviously I couldn't do that. So back to the hotel it was, with the idea of using their Wi-Fi, but somehow in this tiny little 5-minute period of time that I had actually left, the entire front desk staff at the hotel had completely changed round, and now none of them actually knew that I had been staying there in the first place. So I'm trying to translate to them in a broken mixture of English and Japanese that I was their customer until literally 5 minutes ago. I'm fumbling all over the place, but I'm trying to get across to them that I literally just need to use their Wi-Fi for like a split second, if that's okay. So, as it turns out, the other thing that did happen during my little 5-minute adventure down the road is that maintenance is now being done on the Wi-Fi in the entire hotel, aside from the top floor. No, of course it is, no. Now, this makes matters considerably more difficult, because to use the elevator to get to the top floor of the hotel, I needed a room key, which I of course now don't have. So after another painful back and forth, the nice lady at reception finally agrees to use her staff card to scan me into the elevator and let me go up to use the Wi-Fi. So I press the 23rd floor or whatever, I wait in the elevator, ding. Oh great, I'm at the top floor, and then nothing happens. The doors don't open, which is a little bit strange, but I'm not panicking yet. I go to press that button. You know that button in all elevators that's like the 2 arrows that look like a club sandwich that's been turned on its side? I'm like spamming that. Nothing's happening. And then the terrible realization dawns on me that not only do you need a room key to get into the elevator, you also need one to get out. So I am now stuck in the lift. It's about 2 p.m. in the afternoon at this point, probably the least busy time in hotels, and I'm just frantically waving at the security camera trying to get some help. 25 long, hard minutes go by. Finally, the doors slide open as one of the cleaners comes in, pushing a large cart. I'm of course like playing it cool as if I've just been like waiting around for a few seconds. So, you come here often? Inside, of course, I'm eternally grateful that this cleaner has finally turned up. She rides 1 floor down and then exits and starts going out. So as my heart shattered into pieces that she was leaving me so early, I shouted out to her, "Sumimasen, tasukete onegaishimasu," which is like saying, "Help! Help me!" And thankfully she spoke a bit of English, she was very kind and understanding, and she rode the lift all the way down to the first floor again so that I could escape. Unfortunately, I had still not been able to use the Wi-Fi by this point, so the reception staff very kindly drew, and it is beautiful, I wish I still had it, a really like artistically detailed map of all of the trains that I would need to take to get to the airport. Like I was looking at it and I was like nearly tearing up. I was thinking this should be in a temple, this is is beautiful. And with that, I was finally on my way, and I set off to the airport about 10 times more exasperated than I ever was before. So I arrive at the airport and I immediately line up for the tourist information sort of help desk. I know that I'm flying with Lufthansa, the German airline. Other German airlines are available. Whew, there you go, that should cover me. And so I get to the front of the queue and I ask the nice tourist information lady where the Lufthansa check-in desk might be. She does a little tippy-tappy on a keyboard, and I see on the screen in front of her, no results come up. It's just blank. She looks at me a little bit puzzled, but she says, don't worry, just come with me and we'll go and find it. Follow me. So I follow her through Terminal 1, taking in all of the beautiful sights. Oh look, there's the infamous Japanese Airlines check-in desk 7. And ooh, over there, that's the place where you get those tiny little plastic bags for liquids under 50 milliliters. This is such a wonderful safari. We go from one end of Terminal 1 all the way to the other end of Terminal 1, which is not a short walk by any means, by the way. This takes us like a solid 10 minutes. I felt like Bilbo Baggins. There's still no Lufthansa, and the tourist information lady is sweating a bit now because she really wants to help me. Like, she was committed to this search, so we actually ended up going all the way through Terminal 2 as well, which kind of looped back round to the start, and we actually ended up back at the help desk that we started at all that time ago, where now another nice Japanese member of staff has taken the original lady's place. So the first lady asked the second lady for help, and the same thing happens. She types away on the keyboard, no results come up, and she says, don't worry, follow me. So I'm now following two staff members all the way through Terminal 1, then all the way back round through Terminal 2, right back to the start again, where a third nice Japanese tourist information lady has taken up residence. So the two ladies ask the third lady where the Lufthansa check-in desk is, and she says, Lufthansa doesn't actually fly from this airport. And I'm thinking, oh God, no. But what we usually do, she says, is put you on an internal flight to Osaka and then transfer you onto a Lufthansa plane there. Don't worry, it's all calm, follow me. So I'm now following three Japanese women through the airport. They're in sort of like a V formation in front of me, like a flock of Canada geese, like a wave breaker, so they can like push other tourists and passengers out the way, because by this point it's getting worryingly close to my departure time. So I have to hurry through security as fast as possible. Thankfully I picked up one of those plastic bags on one of my loops around the airport. I'm sprinting at this point, trying to find my gate. I get there and my flight is delayed by 30 minutes. Oh, what a relief. Oh, thank goodness, all's well that ends well. But it wasn't quite that simple. You see, the catch was that the layover time that I initially had in Osaka was about an hour, and that had just been cut in half. So when we landed in the airport in Osaka, there was actually only about 20 minutes to make the transfer, and as soon as I got off the plane, there was another nice Japanese member of staff calling all Lufthansa passengers over to her. So a group of about 10 of us formed around this lady, and all of a sudden she just went, "Yosh," and then she started walking away at a very brisk pace. And as she was leading the way, this brisk walking pace started to get a little bit brisker, and then she started to jog, and then she started running, and before we knew it, she was literally flat out sprinting her way through the airport. And I'm not even joking here, I think she might have been the fastest woman I have ever seen. She was rapid. So me and the other 10 people are like clinging on for dear life, trying to keep up. The sort of like less physically able of us are just like straggling away in her wake. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the anime Hunter x Hunter. It was like the first Hunter exam, you know, where the guy with the long legs and the purple mustache just like walks in a tunnel really fast for ages, and everyone else is just like dying in the background. That's what it felt like. Yeah, honestly, she was in high heels as well, and she was just like the second coming of Usain Bolt. She kept on turning around to us and saying, "Hayaku, hayaku, gambare minasan," which is like, fast, fast, keep fighting everyone. There was quite a funny moment midway through as well, where we reached an escalator, which obviously we couldn't really sprint up, and we were all just sort of standing there awkwardly, and this very northern man just turned to me next to me and he went, "Well, that's the warm-up over." And it turned out he was genuinely correct, because the second half of our run was even tougher. I swear we ran like a couple of K at least, and it's a good job as well, because we arrived at the international security gate with only about 2 minutes until our flight was actually supposed to take off. So I get all my stuff out my bag as quickly as possible, spread it all into 4 different trays, and I'm just thinking, sweet Jesus, I hope this makes it through the X-ray machine okay. One tray comes through the machine, it's absolutely fine. The second tray comes through, fine again. Third tray comes through. I'm thinking we are golden here. Fourth tray comes through. It gets moved over to the other side and prepares for inspection. And I knew why it had been moved immediately. It's because, being the classic YouTuber that I am, I had brought a little drone with me to get scenic shots for my vlogs. And I kind of knew in the pit of my stomach that this was going to get pulled up, because it seems to get pulled up every single time. But what I didn't expect is, as they were looking at my drone, two random Japanese police officers just like spawned behind me and started walking over to me, and then proceeded to interrogate me about whether I'd been flying my drone around the airport or not. Which thankfully the rapid Japanese woman from earlier came over and explained to the police officers, no, he's just got here and he's literally only had time to do an impromptu version of the Osaka Marathon. Like, I was with him the whole time, he was part of my track and field team, there's no way he could have been flying his drone. And against all the odds, the police officers let me go, and I was quite literally the final person on this plane. But everything is okay now, because I'm in my plane seat, I'm relaxing, I've got 15 hours to just unwind. I'm sitting next to two very old, nice Japanese ladies. They don't speak any English, but we sort of communicate through smiles, you know? So I'm just sitting there through takeoff, playing a little bit of Pokemon on my DS, which, by the way, I bought Pokemon Sapphire, you know, the like Game Boy cartridge. Turns out when you buy a Game Boy cartridge in Japan, the game actually is in Japanese, so I had literally no idea what any of the attacks I was using were. I was just sort of feeling my way through that one, and then, in typical fashion, as soon as takeoff ends, a baby a few rows in front of us just starts screaming its head off. Where? Get over yourself, yeah? I've had a harder experience up to this point than you little... Ooh, does baby need his bottle? Probably baby did need his bottle, but actually, as it turns out, we found out the reason why the baby was screaming pretty imminently, because the parents in question were all too oblivious to the fact that this alien looking ass baby was about to have a bit of an accident, and it then proceeded to defecate all over the middle of the aisle. So the whole aisle a few rows in front of me had to be like cordoned off. The stewards were well equipped with their own Lufthansa branded like hazard tape that they sort of strung from seat to seat so you couldn't get past. They obviously did their very best to clean things up, but I would still describe the general aroma as sort of pungent. It absolutely reeked. It was so bad. And this smell is kind enough to stay with us for a prolonged period of time. So about 3 hours into the flight, the smell finally starts fading away, and just in time, because dinner is about to be served, everyone. So that's nice, isn't it? We can all just have a little communal meal together. I realise it's been pretty bad up to this point, Jude, but it can't possibly get worse, can it? Oh, can't it? Oh, I see. So me and these two old Japanese women, we've been having a nice dinner together, and as with all old people, when on a full stomach, they recline their seats and they begin to nod off into a sort of lovely little sleep. So they're just there relaxing back, I'm playing Pokemon again, and all of a sudden, the woman next to me just ragdolls and it hits her head on the table in front of her. And she is like fully gone, and my immediate thought is, oh dear, a woman has just died next to me. So I start doing the only thing I can think to do in the heat of the moment, and that is to shake her violently while shouting as loud as I possibly can for help. I'm shouting and screaming, and all the while I'm trying to remember back to a lifeguard course I took about 5 years previous. I'm thinking like, is this Heimlich maneuver territory? Am I doing CPR now? She's been gone for a good 60 seconds now. She's probably seeing the pearly white gates, and for all I know, her companion next to her might be dead as well, because she took an unreasonable amount of time to wake up, considering I was shouting and screaming at the top of my lungs. But eventually the other old lady does wake up, she runs off to get the stewards. I'm still shaking this lady back from the underworld. The stewards come rushing over, and just as they do, the old woman next to me kind of sways a little bit, her eyes roll back into her sockets, she looks at me for a split second, and then proceeds to throw up all over me. Why? Why do these things happen? Why does this happen to me? I don't own any ancient cursed artifacts. I haven't been pillaging in any pyramids. I don't carry around copious amounts of voodoo dolls, so I just don't understand what's wrong with me. Thankfully, the old woman was okay. I got a little bit of reassurance that I might actually not be a completely terrible person, because that was my immediate worry. Because I was thinking something seriously went wrong there. Like, she was chatting with the Grim Reaper for a good minute and a half. But yeah, thankfully she was okay. I, of course, got a free upgrade to premium economy, everyone, which of course did little to offset the fact that my trousers were now covered in bile. Interestingly enough, Lufthansa have a lot of utilities for helping people who have vomited, but not so many utilities for helping people who have been vomited on. So I had to go to the back of the plane and give myself like a wet wipe bath, which really did not help that much at all, to be honest. The only change of clothes they had on the entire flight was one single pajama top. It was like a V-neck that went all the way down to, I'm not even joking, like sternum level, like near, it was getting close to my belly button. And of course that wasn't even that useful anyway, because the main thing that had been sicked on was my trousers. Like what, were the rest of the pajamas sold out? It's Lufthansa, it's not exactly North Face, is it? So I was just there with my chest completely bare, sitting in this new seat, everyone around me wondering what the new smell in the area was. Ironically, I found out later I was actually sat next to an airline reviewer who was currently reviewing this flight, which was the moment that I kind of thought, yeah, I'm definitely on some sort of like European daytime prank TV show. Anyway, so about an hour passes with stewardesses rushing about, fussing over me, trying to go the extra mile for me, but they really didn't have any mileage to go. Like all the members of staff on these planes, I can't speak highly enough of, but they just had nothing to give me. And about an hour in, one of the stewardesses comes over and she says to me, "Oh, sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You forgot your shoes over at your previous seat." And I was thinking, oh, of course, it slipped my mind while I was being chundered on that I needed my shoes with me. I'll just go and get them now. And she said, "Oh, no, they're not so good." And I was thinking, well, how bad can they possibly be? And she was like, no, they're really not so good. And they must have been pretty bad, because the next words that came out of her mouth were, "Would you like me to dispose of them immediately?" So my shoes were thrown away. I literally just bought them before the trip as well. Also, might I add that while me and her are having this very wholesome conversation about my shoes being given a Viking burial, the guy across the aisle from us just turns around, taps her on the shoulder and goes, "Excuse me, could you be quiet? Some of us actually want to get some sleep tonight." And it's like, oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt your little beauty sleep over there. So I responded quite politely with, "Oh, sorry, we've had a little bit of a situation here. We're just talking about my shoes being thrown away." And he just kicked off. He was like ranting and raving. He was saying this is unacceptable. He was saying I pay for premium economy and this is what I get. He was just a monumental penis. Like, read the situation a little. I've just been slugging back there in the trenches being sicked up on. You've just been over here he snored as well, by the way. He snored for the entire rest of the flight. Really loud snoring as well, like really annoying. Like he was in a cartoon. And he was actually made even less happy as that very same moment the woman who had thrown up on me came over to apologise. And she was really, really nice about it. But she did like the full Japanese apology. She like bowed down on the floor and was like really, really apologetic. And both her and her friend came over twice more, so 3 times throughout the flight, and did the full bowing down thing to apologise. And it was really sweet of them. But by the 3rd time, I was just a bit like, it really is okay, because the people around me are looking over, probably assuming that this is some sort of like ritual to honour the god of disease. So yes, anyway, my shoes were gone. And as we've already established, Lufthansa do not have the most robust clothing department. So I'll show you here. This is what they gave me to replace my shoes. These wonderful Lufthansa branded slippers, and what you'll notice is they're very thin and they're made of cardboard. These are literally like the lowest quality thing I think I've ever seen in my life. Walking on them honestly feels worse than walking in bare feet. There's no protect, they just slip off really easily. And listen, I wasn't expecting Nike Vapor Max or anything, but I just prefer my shoes to be a little less recyclable. So essentially by the time I arrived in Munich, I was wearing this Lufthansa branded pajama top which had a V-neck that went down to my belly button, trousers that were covered in bile, and Lufthansa branded cardboard slippers looking like I'd just escaped from the local asylum. Yeah, so I was like skidding around Munich airport at 5 in the morning, just waiting and hoping and praying that the duty-free shop would open so I could buy some deodorant and just like spray the ever-loving shizzle out of myself. Eventually they lifted up the big mesh hanger things and I was just waiting there like it was some sort of like Apple store drop or something. Like I was queuing up to buy the newest iPhone. There was this very well put together German lady that I asked, what is the cheapest deodorant you have on offer? And she was like, oh, well, I have lots of time. It is early in the morning. And she gave me like a full grand tour of the entire duty free. We were looking through whiskies, we were looking through polo mints. Eventually I did find a range of sort of sprays and concoctions that I could put on myself. But as I went to pay, I looked in my bag and realized that I couldn't find my wallet. So obviously I was not in a very rational state by this point, and I just started unpacking like everything out of my rucksack and spreading it out all across the duty-free floor. And as I had everything laid out on the floor, this big tour group began to walk past the duty-free, and I looked over and it was the two old Japanese women and they were waving at me, and it was the most weirdly wholesome goodbye. It's very difficult to describe the mixture of emotions I had whilst waving them off with a smile. But that was the end of my ordeal, and I then spent the final flight back to Manchester feeling very, very sorry for myself. So there you go, that's my flight story. Jesus Christ, do you know what? It was bad. It was really bad.